Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, where we talk about how to design, automate, and scale your business to the next level using sales and marketing automation. You can find out all the tips, tactics, and techniques you need to get more customers and sell more stuff over at theactivemarketer.com. Now, here's your host, Barry Moore.
Welcome to episode 29 of the Active Marketer Podcast. I'm your host, Barry Moore. This week, we've got an interesting show. It's with Dane Maxwell from thefoundation.com. I've been following Dane for years, and he's doing some great work over at the foundation, helping entrepreneurs get started. But we started off the interview talking about marketing automation. It took a bit of an unexpected turn, which I think turned out to be great. And we started talking about some other things that really seem to hold a lot of people back in business, and that's kind of limiting beliefs as to what you can accomplish and who you are and what you believe in. So really interesting interview. Not our normal kind of more technical focused interviews, but really fantastic. I think it's well worth a listen for anybody who's an entrepreneur or running their own business. But just a word of warning, we do let a few swear words fly. There might be the occasional F-bomb in this episode. So if you're driving with your kids in the car, you might want to listen to this at another time. Let's just jump straight into this interview with Dane Maxwell from thefoundation.com. All right, I'd like to welcome to the show entrepreneur extraordinaire Dane Maxwell from thefoundation.com. And if you haven't checked out thefoundation.com, I'd urge you to go over and do that. It's a great resource for any entrepreneur wanting to start a business, any kind of business. They specialize in kind of SaaS businesses, but what they teach applies to any kind of business. So welcome, Dane.
Yeah, thank you.
Really excited to have you on the show because I know you've got heaps of experience you're kind of a serial entrepreneur. You've built heaps of businesses, so and you teach other people how to build them, so you've got heaps of experience on how to go from zero to hero with your automation and your sales funnel. So always great to get stories from the trenches. So why don't we talk a little bit about kind of what automations you've put to work in your businesses and what you've seen really works and kind of the shit that doesn't work.
Wow. Where do you want me to start?
Anywhere you like, brother. Anywhere you like.
Well, I just love automation. I don't love full automation. I don't love automation in the sense of what can you get away with automating? But I do really love automation in terms of how can you greater serve your customer? And so my intention in automation is, generally speaking, how do we serve and segment the customer? I'm getting to a point now where I'm wanting to, if you think about 100 unique visitors visiting a landing page, let's say on average 10 to 20 of them give you an email address, so the other 80 to 90 leave. Yeah. Well, I'm interested in how do you get 50 out of 100 people to interact on your site, and then out of the 50, how do you segment them immediately to then communicate with them in an automated way based on what their key desire and key objections are? So it's literally just shooting fish in a barrel. And that's the level of automation and segmentation that I'm thinking about these days.
And how are you going about that? How are you segmenting those people as they interact with your site?
Well, we're creating a free course as we speak, where when you click on, instead of the email address and then a button where you put the email on and then push the button, what happens is there's a button, and then you push the button, and then usually there's an opt-in, a little pop-up opt-in, so it's for a little bit of engagement before you have to enter the email address, which boosts response rate generally. Instead of actually even having an email right away, there's a pop-up right away that immediately asks the person who they are. So when you click the button, it says, "Who are you? Entrepreneur, employee, freelancer, student, or other?" And they answer that. Then it asks the next question is, what is your next, how much do you want your business to make per month? They answer anywhere between 5 and 500,000 a month. Then the next question is, what is your current biggest roadblock in getting there? And then we have 5 predefined answers based on about 50 hours of pouring through survey data, categorizing all the survey responses into like 15 categories, and then taking the 15 down to the 5 most common and then ranking those. And so we have the 5 most common roadblocks for our audience as the next answer. So you answer those 3 things, that data gets passed over into Active Campaign. And now in Active Campaign, we can talk to entrepreneurs like entrepreneurs, employees like employees, freelancers like freelancers, students like students, etc.
And so you basically doing a mini survey at the front, and then that segments them and puts them in. So there are 5 separate automations in the back, one for each category.
That is the plan. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And
it doesn't actually even need to be 5 automations. The content is the same, but maybe it's like all in the same sequence. There's just like a tag that's like the first 3 lines. Yeah. So as an employee, you're just like, man, one of the most dreaded things as an employee is to wake up in the morning knowing that you're going to have to go listen to a boss tell you what to do all day. ... That's why we love building businesses.
Yeah, very cool.
Versus like if you're an entrepreneur, it's like one of the worst feelings as an entrepreneur is working in a bad business model where every day you actually don't build wealth, but you just get by. That's why we love building businesses. Nice. As a student, it's like, well, one of the things you always got to keep in mind as a student is the professors don't know very much about business, because if they did, they probably own $1 million businesses, but instead they're teaching it, which is why we love building businesses. So we may not even need 5 sequences, but just that intro paragraph at the top.
Yeah, I like it. That actually brings up a good point. There's a feature in Active Campaign and a lot of the automation platforms that people don't use a lot, which is conditional content, right? So just like you said, there's one email there, but it might have 5 beginning paragraphs to it, depending on how that customer's been tagged or segmented going into the sequence in the first place. Very cool. Very cool. And when you're segmenting those people, do you find a dramatically different response rate from those customers?
I don't know yet. We're just doing. We launched it on August 10th. It's currently August 1st or 2nd.
And so what have you been doing with them previously up to date?
Just giving everyone the same damn sequence.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even we've been sloppy marketers. We have not been implementing what our mindset was up until finally August 10th. I've been doing automated marketing for my SaaS businesses for 7-8 years. And I love doing that stuff. I have a very different approach, I think, than most other people, in that I assume a certain level of sophistication in my customers. So right now I just spent 2 hours today putting together email sequences that we're going to send out. So we have this August 10th course going live, right? So we have the entrepreneur, the employee, the freelancer, then they enter their income goal, and then what's stopping them, and they drop right into the first video. Then they go to the second and third and fourth. If they don't finish those videos, we're going to be sending them 6 emails over the course of, or four emails over the course of a week, saying, hey, we see you didn't watch this video. Why not? Is there something else you want? Maybe you want some different piece of content.
Yeah, right.
And that's literally what the email says. If you just actually do want to watch this, here's the link. And that's all the email is. I'll just literally here. Let me just I'll just pull up. I'll pull up a few emails and read them if you like. Okay, so here, one of our videos is on mindset. Okay, so here's, if they don't finish the video after 24 hours, here's an email they get. Subject: I wrote this today. I don't know if there's any. We'll see. Based on response. Subject: your mind is calling. And then inside, it wants you to be free from doubt, anxiety, and fear. You still have not watched this video on mindset yet. Is there anything I can help you with? Push a reply right now and let me know. Otherwise, here's the video. I think you'll enjoy it mucho. Toodles, Dane.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Just simple to the point.
Yes. Right? And I'm like, is there anything I can help you with? Why? What's up? Maybe you got busy in your day. So that's within 24 hours. Now, within 2 days, the next email I send out is subject: your mind, ? What sort of self-talk has your mind been up to today? Whatever it is, ... it truly wants you to be free. If you're free from doubt, anxiety, and fear. So it's basically the same email. You still have not watched this video yet. Is there anything I can help you with? Push reply right now. Let them know. Otherwise, here's a video. I think you'll enjoy it mucho. Toodles. But it's just the first 2 or 3 lines are different.
Yeah. Very cool.
Okay, the next one, 4 days later, subject line: when will it change? ? Have you ever wondered when the self-talk of your mind will become your best friend instead of a fearful enemy? that cuts to, I'm going to actually update this, that cuts you down. Your mind, ... It wants you to be free from doubt, anxiety, fear, yada, 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 the same shit. Next one, day 6. Subject line. If they haven't watched the mindset video, this is the 4th email that goes out. Subject line. The greatest disease plaguing our species is ... I'm not enough. But I have great news. Your mind and body doesn't want you to suffer. It wants you to be free from doubt, anxiety, and fear, blah, 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 the same shit as all the other ones. So if you don't watch the mindset video, we're going to follow up with you 4 days until you complete it. And those would be like the example emails that we send out.
Yeah. Very cool. And then, so is that the same for all the videos in the funnel?
I think so. What do you think? 4 emails if they don't watch the video until they watch it?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you're trying to get them there for a purpose, and if they're not gonna take that purpose, then you don't really need them on the. I'm pretty ruthless with the list. If you're not here to get the message, then get off the list. So I don't mind taking a kind of more hardline approach with like, here's what you asked for. Why aren't you looking at it? Here's what you asked for. Why aren't you looking at it? And if they get pissed off with that, well then, they weren't really your ideal customer in the first place. So I think, I think that's great. And that kind of dovetails into something I think you guys you especially are really great at is the limiting mindset belief. You've had 1,000 people now come through the foundation? How many have gone through the foundation so far?
Roughly 1,500.
1,500, yeah. So well over 1,000 people. Would you say that is probably like the one thing that you see in common with most of the people who want to become entrepreneurs or are starting out on that entrepreneurial journey, is that limiting mindset belief?
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
Man, I really love this question a lot. So let me just feel into my heart space for a second. They're just really confused and scared, Barry. Really confused and scared. They haven't learned to trust themselves. The times that they've trusted themselves in the past, they've gotten hammered or punished or devastated by someone when they thought they were doing what was right. Their mom, their father, someone just totally brutally attacked them, and that registered fear up in their brain. So now every time they begin to think for themselves, truly think for themselves, and then speak for themselves and follow that really natural, innate, born desire that they were born to be with, it gets clouded by all this fear. And it just so happens that for whatever reason, a lot of people get paralyzed going after their deepest desires. And I had a fortunate and unfortunate upbringing where I had a pretty traumatic upbringing. So I learned how to completely just shut off my feelings so I could take action. Like I could actually, like if I showed my feelings around my mom growing up, for example, it would usually not turn out to be very good. So I learned how to go numb.
Yeah.
So when I was starting out in business, I'd have total debilitating fear, total debilitating self-worth issues, total debilitating everything. And I just ignored it. And for whatever reason, it never fucking mattered. And I don't think self-worth issues really, if you can shut them off, you can be successful for quite a while until you become conscious enough to see that they're there. And then at the point where you're conscious enough to notice there's pain, then you can't live with it anymore. But there's like this window where you start to become conscious, just enough to be conscious enough of the pain, but not conscious enough to be able to let go and heal that. And that tends to be a stasis place where people are stuck. And so that's like one theory of why is that people are really just deeply scared of truly trusting themselves. Like if I could just teach one concept for the rest of my life, it would be some flavor of, let me show you how to deeply trust yourself.
Yeah, I remember this. I listened to a call you did with somebody. I can't remember who the person was, but it was basically one of these calls where you just walked this guy through like what his limiting beliefs were and what was holding back. It was just an amazing thing to listen to. And you must do that over and over again with the people from the foundation. So, I guess it's a 2-part question. What's the mechanism or what's the process you got yourself through that limiting belief, and that, going from numb and aware of the pain to just, moving past it and kind of self-actualizing? And what's the kind of basic framework that you help other people do that same thing?
Let's see. I'm noticing I'm having an emotional reaction right now to the question in a good way.
Well, I think that's your superpower, man. That's your path that you're supposed to take. I mean, all the entrepreneurial stuff is great, but I mean, the fact that you help so many people get through so many limiting beliefs that are holding them back, that's, I think, me personally, from looking from the outside, I think that's your journey. That's your path, man.
Yeah. I sneak it into the foundation.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to say was there is just a very debilitating feeling that, well, I don't know. I mean, it's just humbling to explore this space because, I used to really think that, like, okay, your self-worth and your true self-esteem, really, let's get those sorted out, and then we'll have you taking action. And now I'm like, I don't really know if you need to sort that out. You can actually just follow this process. And no matter how insecure or how much doubt or how much not enoughness or self-worth you feel like you lack, no matter how much your self-esteem is struggling, you can actually still follow the process and become successful. It's just that there's a lot of friction. So what happens is the limiting beliefs and the debilitating self-talk, what they do is they create friction. So it depends on how strong you are. And I was born into the world dying. Like from the second that I was born, I was choking on a rare condition where I had feces and poop in my lungs. I couldn't breathe the second I was alive. And then I went on to die in my sleep repeatedly for the first year and a half of my life.
Wow.
And then I went on after that to have debilitating allergies and just a terrible. If there was anyone you would ever doubt that wouldn't make it, it would have been me. But I was born fighting. So I'm very strong in that I can withstand a ton of emotional pain. So much emotional pain that I was able to really, really push through, which is what it was. It was a giant push through the friction. But there are like essentially, there's a guy that I hung out with. He's been on Oprah and Dr. Mark Goldstein. He's the author of Just Listen, Discover the Secret to Getting Through to Absolutely Anyone, or something along those lines. And I was sitting at a table with him for lunch, and I said, Mark, I'm trying to figure out my life purpose. And, Mark's like, oh, that's really easy. All you got to do is ask these 4 questions, address the 4 questions, and then your natural calling is just going to emerge. The first question.
That easy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Of course. And I'm like, okay, well, screw you and thank you at the same time. And so you see, the 4 questions are, what are you trying to prove? Who are you trying to please? What are you trying to hide? What are you trying to show? And you ask those 4 questions. And now the thing is, you might be able to consciously answer that, but there's a lot of deeply unconscious shit going on in those 4 questions. And so let's just say the question, what are you trying to prove? That's a powerful question. And if it's your self-worth, now you're going to have friction taking action. Now, here's the really exciting thing. Really, really, truly, probably one of the most exciting things that I've ever discovered personally is that the things that I want to do from a place of pain, I still want to do from a place of no pain. The journey is just a hell of a lot more fun.
Yeah.
So, like starting the foundation, I've always wanted to start the foundation. But one of the things I was trying to prove that what unconsciously became clear to me was that I wanted to prove to my parents that they could be wealthy too. I started to be really successful in software. I was like, Mom, Dad, look at this. You guys can make millions of dollars with software. You guys can do this. This is so easy. Just come do it. You don't need an idea. You don't need money. You don't need experience. Just follow this process and just do the exact same thing I'm doing. This process is so cool. Come do it. And they didn't want to do it. So, I started the foundation, and I didn't even know this was unconscious. And so when I released that, which was, in order to release that, I basically drop into the feeling space. They're called feeling beliefs, which is really phenomenal. Here we are on an automation marketing podcast. We can get back to that in a second. But something really important I want you guys to consider is you don't change your thoughts to change how you feel. If you do that, your change is temporary. Traditional advice tells you to change your thoughts to change how you feel. For example, if you fail, just view failure as progress instead of failure as failure. Right? So if you fail and then you're like, crap, okay, if my product failed or the sale failed, and you feel into that, you're like, oh, that's kind of that. And failure is attached to your identity of worth. Right. Now, if you change the thought to, you know what? No, failure isn't failure of me. It just means that I'm learning something new because what I did didn't work. Failure is feedback. Right? So like, okay, great. So you're holding that thought. But what's happening unconsciously for you is unconsciously your identity and your self-worth is attached to this on a deep level. So what's happening is you're trying to change your thoughts to change how you feel. But what actually needs to happen is you need to go into the feeling, the felt belief, the belief that comes from a deeply seated feeling. Feel into the feeling, feel it to its completion. As soon as you feel the feeling is not inexhaustible. It has an end point, and you pop through the bottom of the feeling. The feeling belief fades. So all of a sudden you look at failure and you're like, failure, what does failure even mean? What does that mean, failure? I'm not even really certain that failure has any context at all. Failure just means, I guess that didn't work. But there's no impact on your identity. There's no impact on your true self-esteem or your self-worth because you've dealt with the feeling belief. So traditional advice is like, yeah, hey, change your thoughts, change how you feel. But what I'm saying is actually go into the deep-rooted feeling of failure, feel to the bottom of it, and then once you do, you'll have complete and total freedom. And what's awesome is you don't actually have to worry about changing your thoughts anymore because you're just naturally, your mind's just quiet. When you rip out the feeling belief of self-worth, like you don't ever worry about, you don't have like I truly don't have self-worth issues on a broad scale. Now there might be microscopic minuscule moments where like, oh wow, hey, there's the self-worth issue coming up. But for the most part, the concept of like, I feel worthy just resonates as just so clean inside my body. And the concept of worth doesn't even make sense to me anymore. Like it does, but only under the context of conditional love. So this is a really important point. Highly significant. Not only have I felt to nearly the completion of self-worth, as far as I can tell. And so I feel just totally worthy as I am for no other reason than I just am. So like, not only do I have this thing, but I've you come to this, you struggle with self-worth issues, right? You say, okay, man, like, gosh, I can get this business up, then I'll feel worthy. I can get that girlfriend, then I'll feel worthy. And what happens, it doesn't work because it just doesn't. You know this if you've tried. What happens is all you actually have to do is go into the terrifying, traumatic feeling of not feeling worthy and feel it bravely and find someone that can actually hold space and guide you there emotionally. And when you do, you feel at the bottom, like what happened for me is I was like, holy shit, not only have I been worthy this whole time, wait, I actually haven't even been worthy. Wait, my worth was never in question. The fuck?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, if my worth has never been in question, then what's the whole point of business? What's the whole point of life? I was like, well, shit. The whole point of life, if it's not to prove my worth, for me personally, some people won't resonate with proving their worth. Other people might resonate with wanting belonging and acceptance. Other people may resonate with wanting to prove their value or their significance. Other people may just never want to feel alone. Whatever the issue is, there's 9 core emotions that make up the human experience of suffering. And so yeah, I got to this point. It's like, well, okay, my worth's never been in question. Holy crap, what's the point of life? Well, the whole point of life then is just simply just to enjoy it. And so what are you going to wake up to do today? Whatever it is you're about to do, I hope the reason that you're about to do it is because of only one thing, that you just absolutely enjoy it. So then if you're not starting a business to prove your worth, but just truly to enjoy it, then the whole purpose of business is just to have fun. And then when the whole purpose of business is to have fun, you actually reach a whole new level of mastery that you never would from some sort of striving place of trying to prove your worth. So it's very significant, and as you talk about this, as you hear me speak, imagine our foundation students being around me and around this energy for 6 whole months. There's no wonder that they come out remarkably free individuals.
Yeah, that's Dane. That's probably the best business advice I've ever heard.
What about it?
Just that, I think people lose sight, and even, I'm guilty of it as anybody, but just lose sight of why they're doing stuff and what they're doing stuff for, or they're just flat out not friggin' honest about why they're doing stuff, whether it's to prove their self-worth or to not be alone or whatever it is, whatever that driving subconscious issue is. They're not just being honest and recognizing what that is, and not going back to why you're doing everything in the first place, which is if you don't have those self-worth issues. Is it fun? You wake up every morning and, the mass majority of people I come across are complaining about what they do every day. And it's like, well, why don't you change that then if you're so unhappy about it?
Yeah. But you rip out, you rip out the feeling beliefs of that person who complains, and pretty soon they just naturally start doing what they love. Exactly. You don't even need to you don't need to pull any tricks out, hire a accountability person, or set a goal, or this stuff is pretty ineffectual compared to going in, ripping out the feeling set of beliefs to the point where your heart just naturally pulls you in the direction you want to go. It's effortless. Life is designed that way.
Which brings me to something I wanted to loop back to. You were talking about earlier with kind of what you see with all the people going through the foundation is, you could probably follow the formula and have a moderate level of success just by following, whatever formula. If you're taking some action and heading in the right direction, you're going to have some sort of measure of success, whatever that means to you. But in the foundation, those people who kind of find their own authenticity and deal with those limiting beliefs and go on to be successful versus those people that kind of just follow the formula and go on to be successful, but there's a lot of friction, as you said before. What kind of ratio is there in that? So how many people are going successful with friction versus without friction?
Oh, I don't know if it's a hard question, because every successful entrepreneur, truly successful entrepreneur in the foundation, has done the deep work.
Cool. Very cool.
It shows up. What happens is they're like, oh, I don't want to do this crap. They're like, I'm not going to do the limiting belief shit. So 3 months in, they're absolutely freaking exhausted and in so much pain. They're like, oh, you know what? I'm in so much pain. I'm going to visit this limiting belief stuff. They spend a day clearing their limiting beliefs, and then they're like a rocket. But they don't do it till they're generally in a lot of pain. But yeah, our top students are manipulating in a great way and rewriting and updating the software of their mind, updating their subconscious mind, how they view themselves, how they see themselves. And because of that, astronomically high growth rates. One guy was he had to drop out of the foundation at 3 months in. He had a few $100 to his name, and within 3 or 4 months he was making $20 to $50,000 a month. And he was just doing high-level consulting. He was using the foundation framework to go out, find a pain in the business, sell them a one-off solution, outsource the one-off solution, and then take a big premium. He knows how to price anchor because he's going after a big pain, has a developer or whatever build the one-off solution. He pockets the profit, and then he's off. He's just always prospecting for consulting clients. And, successful businesses have a lot of good problems to solve. There's always good problems to be solved by successful businesses. So he goes after successful businesses. And, every night when he was going to bed, he was rewriting his identity. I'm a $50,000 per month business owner. And, doing that 5 minutes before bed when the subconscious is most suggestible to change. Now, the other fascinating thing with this guy is, he wrote another book that I recommend called Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender. And that book just talks about surrendering your feelings, going into the feelings. So he felt this pit in his stomach. So he'd wake up every morning for an hour and just sit there and unconditionally feel this pit in his stomach for a week, 1 hour, 7 days. After about 7 days, boom, he popped through it. The pit in his stomach disappeared and he was completely free. And the next day he closed maybe $15,000, $20,000 or $30,000 in sales the very next day. I'm telling you that this is astronomical results, which is why I think students in the foundation come out so freaking happy. Even if they don't build software, they're so freaking happy because they feel successful and happy anyway, and they don't even want to do software anymore in the first place. They're like, shit, I want to be a musician. I want to be an artist. And then they go actually do what they love.
Nice.
But this guy, thank you. Yeah, this guy did $15,000, $20,000, or maybe even 30. I can't remember in sales the next day. I said, well, what the hell happened? He's like, oh, dude, they were right in front of my face the whole time. I just couldn't see it because all my own shit was in the way. And so that's just generally what happens. Like, if I'm ever coaching a student who's struggling, I just, instead of asking them like what their problems are, I just watch them implement for like 5 minutes, share the screen, watch them like prospect via email. And then I'm like, holy crap, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this way? Why aren't you following the process? Like, what has you doing this over here? And then I'm just like, and they're like, oh, I thought this. And then I'm like, oh, about this. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm really terrified of getting rejected on email. So I'm trying to like skirt around all these fucking issues. And little do they know that like the success has been right in front of them the whole time. It's literally right in front of their nose. A world of financial abundance is totally just right the fuck in front of your face, but you can't see it because you have all this fear. So that guy surrendered his fear, and the next day he closed 15 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand. And it was always right in front of him the whole time.
Amazing, man. Amazing.
It's a trip. It's absolutely a trip. It works.
All right. Well, we kind of went off on a tangent there, and I'm really, 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 really glad we did, because I think it's kind of the elephant in the room for a lot of people. They don't want to address their self-worth issues or their pain issues or whatever, and they just want to mask it with the next business book or the next strategy or the next whatever. And as you said, until you are a little bit honest with yourself and you can sit in your issues for a while, you're never going to find that frictionless pace in your business or your life or whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, but it's humbling. It's a humbling experience, and it takes a lot of bravery, and in my experience anyway. And, we're just getting ready to launch our next foundation course August 10th here. And I watched our launch video that we made or whatever, that like I had a huge hand in making, and I'm watching myself on video, and I'm watching the script that we put together, and I'm watching how we're editing it all together, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm a badass. And then I'm watching the video, and I'm like, oh fuck, I can catch myself feeling a little extra worthy right now because I look so good on video. And I'm like, oh damn, there's some worth attached to what I'm doing right there. That was just yesterday. And it was really subtle, and it snuck in, and I was like, oh crap, look at that. Look at me actually feeling worthy because something I'm done. That's not unconditional love. That's conditional love. And worth exists in conditional love. Worth is not even a concept in unconditional love because there's nothing to earn it. It's just there. You can do nothing to gain or lose it. You just are unconditionally loved. So I just sat in the feeling of the worth of that, like, oh man, and I feel sad. I actually just feel the sadness of it, like, oh great, yeah, maybe I'll finally be worthy now because I published this video. And I'm like, oh fuck, that's really sad. So I just feel into the sadness until it reduces, and I'm like, all right, cool, that video is really awesome, and I love being really good in it because it's just fun to be really good, and for no other reason. Now, like, I choose mastery. Now I choose being remarkable. Now I choose being Olympic in my discipline. I put in the hours because being excellent feels good, and it's so much more enjoyable. Like I said, you end up doing the same thing you're already doing anyway, except when you do it from this place of love, love just wants to be masterful. So you do it for the ecstasy and experience of being remarkable. And that in itself is the reward. So, I mean, it can come up and occur. And, it took that video yesterday for me to feel it again. And like, oh shit, there it is again, creeping up on me, that motherfucker.
That's a really good point, though, that I didn't even really consider, is that it's a double-edged sword. You get these feelings of worth, and they can be poor feelings of worth, or they can be overinflated feelings of worth as well. I didn't even really consider that other side of the coin to it, that you have to catch yourself in both of those circumstances.
Yeah. If you want to be, like, my opinion is, if you want to be a truly happy human, break away all ideas of worth that have anything to do with you earning love, doing something to feel fulfilled. And like the greatest news that I could ever share from the deepest part of my heart, anybody listening, is I have wonderful news for you. So here we are on The Active Marketer with Barry Moore, and you've been listening to us. And isn't it the damnedest thing that we're here on automation marketing and we're talking about the issue of self-worth? And so I'm really touched that we got to have this conversation today. And for those of you listening, like, I just want to tell you something really important that you need to hear, that I feel you need to hear. You may not need to hear it. But for those of you that struggle with issues of self-worth, earning, doing things to earn love. Instead of earning a living, we've been taught how to earn a loving. Just bullshit. Or, the not enoughness. If you're struggling in those realms, the greatest news I could ever tell you is that not only are you worthy beyond measure, but that your worth was never in question in the first place. The worth of your heart, the worth of your soul, the worth of you has actually never been in question. What's happened is you've been surrounded by other people who have self-worth issues, and they've projected their self-worth issues onto you. So you took them on in your innocence, when in reality, you were always beyond worthy, and your worth was really never in question. In the deepest form of truth and reality, your worth has never been in question. It's only been because you've been surrounded by all these people who question their own worth. So when you step into this concept of, worth, what does that even mean? I suppose I'm worthy, but I guess I'm not unworthy either. Like, I think I'm just loved no matter what. I think I have value no matter what. And then when you get to live from that place, you get to do remarkable work. Because the place that you work from, you get to go do the same thing that you're going to do right now after this podcast, but the reason that you do it is because you enjoy it and it feels good, not to prove anything. So the automation marketing sequence becomes this fun journey. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. As opposed to this burden, arduous process where you're like, okay, I just got to figure out how to get this sequence together so I can make $1 million a year or $1 million a month or whatever your self-worth number is. And then the beautiful thing, the truly deeply beautiful thing about this is that when your worth is off the table and you do things for the sole sake of enjoyment, the mastery that you execute and implement is insane. You get to build and create and do things at a remarkable level, truly because the activity feels good. And that is where life becomes deeply, deeply enjoyable.
Wow. What a fantastic episode. Dane, you are a champion, man. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your superpower with us. I think everyone could benefit from heading over to the foundation and finding out more about how you help people basically overcome their limiting beliefs and become champion business people. And as you said, a lot of people that start out wanting to do a software business end up doing something else because they don't have that self-worth issue tied to this is what I have to do. They're free to pursue whatever it is they want to pursue, which is pretty.
People do the damnedest coolest things when they feel worthy.
Yeah, awesome.
To go out and build bird feeders all day just because they enjoy it.
Well, I really appreciate taking your time with you, and I urge everyone to check out thefoundation.com. I hope to see you online again soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Barry.
Wow, really interesting stuff there from Dane, and I want to thank him for taking the time to come on and share that with us today. I also want to appreciate you, the listener, for spending time with us today and all the other episodes you may have listened to. Really do appreciate that. Thank you for spending time with us. You can find all the show notes from this episode over at theactivemarketer.com/Dane, D-A-N-E. We have another great show for you next week where we get back to our kind of marketing automation roots and we talk to e-commerce rock star Ezra Firestone. He shares some of his best e-commerce follow-up sequences and secrets with us, so don't miss out on that show. See you next week, everybody. In the meantime, get out there and design, automate, and scale your business to the next level with marketing automation.
Thanks for listening to the Active Marketer Podcast. You can find the show notes and all the latest marketing automation news over at theactivemarketer.com.